Good afternoon, everybody, or good evening. This is Tye Tribbett, and listen, I'm delighted to come to you today with what I feel is a much-needed conversation. We know that we're in different times in our society and in our world, but these are the moments when we as a nation need to acknowledge and celebrate our strengths, our struggles, and our good deeds. On behalf of the American Urban Radio Inspirational Network, listen, I'm honored and I'm excited to present this Praise in Place virtual conversation. I got some of my friends with me, and trust me, this is a conversation you do not want to miss. I will be joined by 4 clergy members from all over the USA who will share with you their personal perspectives and their journey as we all navigate through these uncertain times. Okay, so first guest, we all know him. He's a household name, personal friend of mine, and also I consider him a mentor. From Brooklyn, New York, senior pastor of the Love Fellowship Tabernacle in New York, PA, also, Delaware, Orlando. He's all over. Please help me welcome Bishop Hezekiah Walker. And from Chicago, Illinois, senior pastor of the New Life Covenant Church, my friend and my brother as well, Pastor John Hadd is here. In Atlanta, Georgia, senior pastor now of the New Birth Missionary Baptist Church, my good friend Dr. Jamal Bryant is also here. And in Fort Worth, Texas, going down to the Dallas area, we're going to the senior pastor of the Chosen Vessel Church, also a gospel artist and friend of mine, Bishop Marvin Sapp. I'm delighted to have you all today. How y'all feeling? Thank you all for joining us today to have this roundtable discussion to see how we can better serve our communities and our churches and our country at large. Bishop, I'm gonna start with you. The pandemic hit us all, and it's seemingly out of nowhere. I kind of want to ask the question, kind of like 9/11, where were you when it hit? But what happened with you? What was your first reaction to the pandemic and also the racial injustice as it pertains to you addressing your church? Not really personally for you, but as it pertains to you addressing the church and your community, what was your first response?
Well, Pastor, it was quite major for us because, when the pandemic hit, New York City was a hot spot. And actually, we lost 5 of our members. So it kind of took me by surprise, losing those members like that. And, just understanding what was going on and trying to get a grip and hold to it. But we were able to kind of maintain, and, once we realized what was going on and once we had to digest, what was happening and kind of redo some things, things began to come together after we got over the grief and got over the funerals and the fact that, COVID was real. And then we had to get into the church and talk to them about that. But then at the same time, we had the social injustice going on. So we had to kind of talk about that as well.
Ooh, yeah, we can't be afraid to talk about any of these things. Pastor Hannah, you as well. What was your first response, or what did you turn to first? Where do leaders turn when things like pandemics and stuff like this hit? What did you turn to? What was your first reflex? What was your response?
I mean, the first thing that we want to do is that we want to be informed. You have to be informed because you can't lead from an ignorant place. Because don't forget that you are a shepherd and that sheep are following. So from that, we had to definitely begin to communicate with other pastors, other churches, to make sure that we were all on the same page. At the same time, we were very clear in what we were seeing, very clear in what we were hearing, monitoring New York. New York took us into prayer. And in Chicago, they had immediately set up one of our convention centers to be a hospital. So we then had to shift and go into intercessory prayer and begin to pray that what they were saying would not happen in our city.
I love that. I love that. And that's very imperative as well. We're going to go to Dallas. Bishop Sapp, how you feeling this afternoon, this evening?
I'm doing very well, man. Just honored to be a part of this dialogue.
We're honored to have you, man. Thank you very much for taking the time to do this. For the South now that you went from Detroit all the way down to Texas. What was that like for you, and what's the difference in the cultures there and how they responded to the pandemic and to the racial injustice as well?
Well, the reality is that I've only been here less than a year. So when COVID hit, I was it had to be about 6 months while I was here as a pastor. And the transition, the shift has been, sometimes it's been difficult, simply just because you're dealing with a 100-year-old church, you're dealing with a specific mindset and specific focus, as well as I live in a red state. So, living in a red state, it's definitely different from living in a blue state. In Michigan, they locked down everything. In Michigan, everything was it was done based upon, science. Down here in Texas, it's a totally different, animal. You got people tripping out over having to wear masks. You got people fighting and doing all types of things. But we made sure that we followed what the CDC guidelines were. Churches are open in Texas. They having church every Sunday. They've been having church since probably I think it was the 30th of May.
Wow.
We haven't opened up yet, just simply because I understand that the majority of the people who are being affected are those who are of a darker hue. Those of us of color. So, we're just making sure that we watch all of the guidelines and the things that the CDC gives us, as well as, just as Pastor Hannah said, we have been on a nonstop, Chosen Vessel has been on a nonstop prayer every morning since COVID hit at 6 a.m. So, we just interceding for the nation and interceding for our state.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Dr. Jamal Bryant, you are actually out now fighting for racial equality in Louisville, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you have always been on the front line for Black people, Black and brown people. You have always been unafraid to voice the concerns of the community and the cities at large. And I've always honored that about you. I've always knew that we are many members, one body. Everybody can't do everything. But I know Dr. Jamal Bryant is going to stand up for the people with some decency. So thank you for being on the front line.
Thank you for that.
What do you believe our charges or responsibility is, first as leaders and then as the lay in the community, as it pertains to racial injustice? Because right now, everybody gets fired up. We get heated up. We get mad first. And we had the riots and all that now. So now it's kind of like, I want to say settling, but with the recent video I saw last night of a man going into his truck and being shot, what should our posture be as leaders and then as a lay?
I think is, first, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be on with all of my friends of 20 years plus, is to resist the temptation of turning our platform into a stage. A stage is where you perform. A platform is where you produce. And I think that we have to be intentional, especially now 80 days before the election, that we're really pushing the mandate of what is necessary for our congregation. Our congregants are bombarded with fake news. They're not sure what they can trust from the White House, from MSNBC, and from Fox. The gospel means the truth. And so we've got to be armed to really inform our people, because we came with a warning label. Our people died from a lack of knowledge. And so we've got to be very intentional of what it is that we're saying. One of the things COVID has done, Pastor Tye, it has erased the theater of the church. And so we don't have lights, camera, and action. We just have the essence of what it is that we're doing. So when it is that we're preaching, we don't have the benefit of turn to your neighbor. There is no shake somebody by the hand. Is that we have to have deliberate content of what it is that we're expressing and articulating, and people are leaning in. All four of us who are on, or five of us, including you, have seen growth in our viewership online in COVID. So people who swore off the church are now listening. People who said they would never come are now peeking in. And so this is going to be one of the greatest defining hours in history is going to record. Did we say anything during a pandemic? Today, the other day, Pastor Tye, on Monday, the Republican Party, for the first time in their history, announced they are having a convention with no platform. In other words, they're not promising anything. They're not going to deliver anything. And I hope that the body of Christ will not be caught without a platform. Is that we make sure that there is something that we're really championing.
Wow, that's very imperative. And with that, Bishop Walker, let's go back to New York. With that being said, when I was growing up, the church didn't really mix politics with praise. I didn't really hear a whole lot about the president. I just heard a whole lot about Jesus. Do you think it's necessary to inform your congregants of political realities?
Very much so, Pastor. You know, I was like you growing up. We didn't hear too much about politics and church. As a matter of fact, they told me you don't mix the two. But as I started pastoring and understanding where our people were and what we were and what was going on, even with us, even within our community, we had to get involved with politics. We had to get involved with the politicians of our city. We had to get involved with all of the governments, you know, surrounding the properties that we were trying to go after. So I had to be in touch with them so that they can connect with our people and we can connect with them. A few years ago, we had a very bad gun problem in our city. And so I had to connect with, you know, our city officials to try to come up with a program to get the guns off the street. So it is important. And, you know, again, back then, even now, you always hear people say, where is the church? Where is the church? And I think that if we would get more involved and if we would connect with the people, and for some reason, they kind of told us if we were connected, we wouldn't be saved. But I think if we connect, we are more than saved, you know. That's how I look at it. Like, you know, we're doing what really God wants us to do if we connect. Because if the gospel is here, it is only here to them that are lost.
Wow.
I think it's important that we connect with people that don't agree with us, that don't even believe like we believe, just so that we can have some kind of common ground and we can share the light of Jesus Christ.
I love that. I love that. Pastor Hannah, in Chicago, if there were no pandemic and if there were no racial injustice, we still have a violence demon in Chicago. What say ye?
If anything, I know is that spirits are regional. And it is imperative that every shepherd, every watchman know what spirits that you are coming up against. When the man comes out of the graveyard, and the first thing that the demon says was, allow us to go into these swine, but don't make us leave this region. So I am very aware, very alert that there is a spirit of corruption and there's a spirit of violence over the city of Chicago. You have to love the city, know your assignment to stay in the city. And so I know that God has called me to be a watchman. So we've had gun turn in. We have, right now, after the looting, I had to go in another direction. My goal now was to do a Zoom with 1,000 young people, but not from the church. But now I had to reach for voices that they listen to, they listen to, and allow them to try to say to them, come on, guys, let's rethink this situation. Let's get ourselves together, because it has ripped this city in half.
Wow. I love that idea. If I take that, I'll send you a little offering, okay? I love that.
Okay, I'll make sure I give you my cash app.
I love it. And Bishop Sapp, you're new to Texas. I'm new to Orlando. I'm trying to figure out what I can do for the city.
I just want to say the only thing that's consistent on this page.
Do you think it's important to connect with the political officials there to war on behalf of the city now that they're in? And even in Detroit, Flint still doesn't have clean water, still issues back home that you're probably still managing and navigating through as well. Do you think it's important for you to connect with the officials in the city, or, you know what I mean, to use your platform and your influence to just inform those who will listen?
Well, let me. I want to allow Pastor Hannah. He was about to say something, and I want to make sure he doesn't make his thought. So I want to make sure he says what he says. Then I'm going to come back and I'm going to go and I'm going to address it. Go ahead, man of God.
The only thing that's consistent on this page is me and Hezekiah. Tye moved to Florida. You moved to Texas. And Pastor Jamal moved to Atlanta. So when you want consistency and roots, you only refer to me and Hezekiah.
If you want an apostolic move, go to Sapp, Tye, and Bryant.
Come on here.
He said, go.
Let me say this. Y'all so silly. That's one of the things I want to say. But honestly, yeah, I've had to deal with things as it pertains to Michigan and as it pertains to Texas. In Michigan, of course, even though I'm no longer pastor there, I still oversee the church. So because I'm still one of the overseers of the church, you know, it has absolutely affected our community. I mean, so many people that I knew in the church community, from the Church of God in Christ to apostolic circles to Baptist circles, they lost their lives due to COVID-19 because they went to church meetings. A man I knew very well, who I've known since I was a little bitty boy, Bishop Nathaniel Wyoming Wells, who literally went home after service and laid down and didn't wake up simply because of COVID-19. So, you know, dealing with the whole pandemic piece in the state of Michigan is absolutely different, you know, because there we're dealing with a whole host of individuals who understand the pandemic, as well as they're trying to do things that, you know, the CDC requires, as well as, you know, Big Gretch has been sharing with them in order for them to remain safe. But then you shift to Texas, who, you know, they don't think that this is a real pandemic. You know, they don't think that it's real at all, and they function as if nothing is going on. But being a pastor of a predominantly Black church, I have to make sure that I let them know, listen, you know, 43% of people who are infected are African American.
Yes.
And if 43% of the people that are affected are African American, and we're less than 20% of the population of the United States, that means that this is affecting us more. So we have to make sure that we as believers use wisdom in how we deal with, address, and how we function. So, you know, calling home, dealing with stuff that way, and then dealing with things in Texas. Absolutely, I've connected to the political heads in different spaces in different places. But again, it depends on how they look at it, because again, some of them don't look at it as if this is a real problem. So then I have to step into the shepherd's role, which I am, and use my shepherd's responsibility of making sure that I teach, train, and share not only biblical information, but make sure I share things. I send out to the members of our church things from the CDC, to our leaders, and this, that, and the other, just to make sure that they are informed.
I love it. Pastor Jamal Bryant, why is it so important to you to be in Louisville right now with your schedule, with all that you got going on? You decided to stop everything, book your ticket, and go to Louisville. Why was it that important to you, and what do you expect to accomplish while there?
I felt forced to be here because we're at a critical place that Black Lives Matter is the very first civil rights movement in the history of Black people not led by a preacher.
Wow.
This is the very first movement that was not birthed out of the church. And so as a consequence, the church has been pushed on the sideline and has been absent from the conversation.
I love it.
So I felt I needed to be here because I didn't want this generation to think that the church is not speaking to the issues and isn't present. I was just in a conversation with Pastor Hannah Friday or Thursday, and I said to him, everybody has a role, that everybody doesn't have to do the same thing. Pastor Hannah has a mantle for prayer. I don't need him to go get arrested with me tomorrow. I needed him to pray that I get out. So, everybody's got to find what their role is, what their responsibility is. I tell everybody everywhere that my first entrance into civil rights was through Bishop Hezekiah Walker. When Biggie Smalls was killed, I couldn't find anywhere to hold his service, and Bishop Walker opened up his doors. This is 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And so everybody has a different role that they have to play in it. And so I think that the church has got to find a role, but we've got to be in a lane. So I'm here assembling the churches because the young people have been involved, that Pastor Hannah is going after, the Bishop Sapp. The community is involved, but they kept saying, where is the church? And so tonight I'm doing an outside, Monday night I did a outside rally of all of the Black churches in Louisville before we do the march on yesterday, which was Tuesday, so that the church is the guiding presence for what is needed and necessary. So I felt like I had to be here.
But what do you say to people who feel as though their votes don't count? And I talk to a lot of people. I'm of a younger generation.
Yes.
And some people think it's a hoax. Some people think it's already predetermined and pre-decided.
Right.
How important it is for us to vote. And again, these words are not words that ring out in old church. Go vote. Make sure we don't hear these things. So how important is that?
So here's what's important that the Holy Spirit lined up. That on this call, we have the most critical voting blocks of the presidential election. Texas, Florida, New York, Illinois, right? And all of us have to deal with some guiding principles. The reality is this administration got in the office, Tye, not because of all of the votes Trump got, but because of all the people that didn't vote. And so we've got a responsibility. The other side of it, Bishop Sapp and I talk more frequently than Bishop Walker and Pastor Hannah, is that we got to deal with the dialogue that the evangelicals are more faithful than the Black church. And they're more faithful because, Tye, they hang their hat on issues and we hang ours on personality. So it don't matter who the person is. Evangelical says, as long as you're against same-sex marriage and abortion, we with you. Trump will look beyond all your faults to see our needs. Black people are like, are they exciting? Are they charismatic? How come Kamala don't have on lipstick? We missing the whole point of what the election is about because we have sacrificed principles for personality. And I am guilty as one of them that I always have been pushing a person, vote for so-and-so for mayor, so-and-so for Congress, but not about issues. What we have to do in this election cycle is not just vote against Trump, but understand to our congregants, why am I voting for Biden, if that's where you are? So I'm voting for Biden because he wants 2 years of no college tuition. I'm voting for Biden so that Black men who went to jail for possession of marijuana get their record expunged because it's now legal. I'm voting for him because I want Black people in my congregation to have access for small business loans, not just to get loans for used cars. And so if we start pushing what are issues, I think that will change the whole landscape.
Let me add this, Tye. Jamal, this is one of the key things that needs to happen too. We're not informed as pastors. So I think what we have to do is we have to make sure that we get that information out to all of these individuals. You and I'm informed because I got you. I'm informed it's for real. I'm informed because I got you. I'm informed because I'm on the board for the National Black Action Network. So of course, you know, Al's kicking the information down on a consistent basis. But for those pastors that are not informed, like, you know, I ain't gonna bring his name up.
Just them.
It's them. We sit up talking about, again, personalities, past decisions that they made, but we're not dealing with the issues that need to be dealt with in the now.
Tye, before you interject, let me just say this one last thing. All of us came up in reformations or denominations. Hannah, Kojic, Sapp, PAW, and Walker been with everybody. I'm AME. All of us come out of something. The people on this.
Walker is Bible way.
Who is?
Bible way. Walker is Bible way.
All right, Bible way. All right.
No, wait. Just say apostolic. Just say apostolic.
Right. See, he can't line up with just one of them. Now, he got about 3 of them. But here is the strength of the influencer platform. Is the gentleman who you have on this show tonight have more followers than the denomination we came out of.
Wow.
So, so if we would utilize that same level of influence in our fathers in ministry, it is almost heretical for us to say it, is the people on this line have more influence than their denomination. Especially while we're in a cyber world. And so that's why I said that platform is so important, because none of us can wait for our presiders to issue a statement about what happened in Wisconsin. Right. None of us can wait for the presider to show up in Louisville. So because we've got the influence, then we've got to move without a title. And that's the responsibility of those who are coming behind. We were trained to wait for the title, wait for somebody to die, wait for somebody to give us a chance, wait for the old man to retire. All of that is gone. In this season, we got to move and just at the click of a button, say, listen, I've got, Pastor Hannah, 7,000 people at 4 a.m. prayer. Now, we grew up waiting for convocation for that to happen. Right. This Negro doing it on a Thursday. You know, so you got to recalibrate everything. Tye, you just saw the whole Stellar Awards on Sunday, which taped in hybrid to be able to make that impact with no live nobody went to Vegas. And so now we got to understand that technology is our friend. How do we utilize it? How do we mobilize it? And that we're shaping the narrative of doing simple things that would not cause us to be activists. So imagine Bishop Walker saying, I need everybody who is under my fellowship to tell me if your mailbox is missing. Now that ain't no march. Nobody got to get arrested. That Pastor Bishop Sapp for both Michigan and Texas finds out who of the old people don't know how to do absentee ballots, and we're going to send one of my college students to go pick it up and drop it off at the post office for it. That's radical stuff that doesn't cause us to really be overtly aggressive.
You know, I want to jump in and say something. You know, I think what's really important is what Bishop Marvin said, and of course, Bishop Pastor Hannah, he started out by saying it's the information that is needed. And, you know, again, our people are destroyed by a lack of knowledge, and because we don't know. And I think one of the things that keep us out of the know is that there's no unity among the brethren. Somehow, some way, we're going to have to connect and kind of do it much different from our forefathers. And we're going to have to really connect and become, you know, friends and become, you know, partners in this and get together and get the information from each other, you know, and understand the information and then put it in our people, because we can't put it in our people unless we know. And I think the only way that we're going to know if we connect.
I think as a pastor, as leaders, the information that's imperative. We got to get that. So do we give them the information, assuming they're not watching the Democratic Convention online? You know what I'm saying? Because, you know, we give them scriptures, and not that they don't read their Bible, but we give, you know, what God has given us concerning certain texts. Is it our responsibility now as pastoral leaders to study not only the Word of God, but the Democratic and Republican conventions, so that we can convey, you know, their postures on, you know, what their postures are? Because I don't know. Sometimes I just ask, you know, people who know, like you, Dr. Bryant. I called you a little while ago too, and said, hey, what does he stand for? What do they stand for? I haven't really taken the time myself to listen to them myself and study to show myself, approve myself. So should there be a charge to pastors? Is that what we're saying right now? Y'all got to not only read that Greek and Hebrew, but you got to read that Trump and Biden as well.
Well, first, they're not reading the Greek or the Hebrew. So let's start there. You're giving them way too much credit. I think that we do have a responsibility, and it's forums like this that help us. Is that we can't take it for granted for Tye, Bishop Sapp, myself, who are now studying a culture that we don't know. So back in Jersey, back in Michigan, back in Baltimore, we knew who to call, and to get it done. Now we in the dark. We trying to figure it all out. And so it's very important that we find that level of consistency to be able to pull on. So today here in Louisville, they said, did you call the district attorney? I was so busy, Tye, thinking about arresting the officers,
Right.
that the black district attorney didn't even cross my mind. The people had to tell me. So we reach out to him, Tye. He's unavailable because he's speaking at the Republican convention. A black man. See, if you don't have that information, you gotta do it yourself. See, what we've got to disavow is the whole old mantle that the bishop knows everything.
Right.
We don't know everything. And Negroes are sitting in the pew checking your facts on Google while you speaking it. So you can't do just emotion. You got to make sure that what you're saying is true. A lot of preachers, none of us on here, got people who do sermon prep for them.
Yeah.
I think that you've got to do their resources in our pews who can give us, hey, give me a report card of this city council person, of this state representative. Let me know what I don't know so that we can hand out report cards. And I want to say, not just to my comrades on, but for pastors who are listening, you cannot make endorsements from the pulpit. That's why it's very important that you underscore the policy and let everybody else fill in the blank. I don't want you to get in trouble. Right. I'm out here on a limb, but I don't want you endorsing anybody from the pulpit. But if you endorse the policy and educate the people, they'll understand where to go.
All right, we've heard from those who have left their father's house and gone to another city. Let's hear from the stable ones, as you say. So, I
don't like that word stable. I don't like that word stable.
I'm leaning in.
The word stuck. I want to use the word stuck.
That's low.
Let's hear from the stuck ones. What to you is the greatest challenge? What is the greatest challenge to you overall? I don't want to say in racial injustice or in politics or the pandemic, but as a leader in Chicago with all that's going on, what's the greatest challenge and how do you see yourself being the answer to that?
One of the things that bothered me when I woke up that Monday and I saw the news and I saw my people running down those streets, tearing this city up. And I wept from the first looting that they did in our community. And I went and helped clean up our community and fix and cleaned up the grocery store that they had destroyed. And then I talked to some of them, and they some of the things that were coming out of their mouth, they were saying out of ignorance. So one of the things that we have to do is that we have to educate them about their people, about how they represent their people. I went to a black college. I'll never forget my history teacher, Miss Cannon. You could not pass her class until you presented your voter's registration card.
Wow.
You could not pass her class.
That's amazing.
She says, I don't care if you get all A's on these exams. You will fail this class if you don't present me your voter's registration card. Because too many black people died for you to have that right. And when I looked at that, my first thing out of my mind was, how many of them are registered voters? How many of them know that you can change the temperature by changing the seats of those the positions of those that are in those seats? So one of the things that we're going to begin to do is to try to educate them and get them registered, and then try to get them to tone down and understand their self-value and how they don't just represent yourself, you represent your people. Woo! You represent every black person in America. And this is not the picture that we need to paint right now.
I love it. I want to ask you the same question, Pastor Hannah, that I'm going to ask Bishop the same. In this era, in this pandemic, in this season, new things are being birthed. People are being more creative than they have ever. We've had to be. You know, when you grow up in the hood, you'll make a mayonnaise sandwich. I don't know, you'll make it work. So people are making it work now. What creatively has been birthed out of you or your ministry in this season? What new thing have we seen out of Pastor John Hannah?
One thing I've learned is that preachers don't know everything.
Yeah.
So the best thing to do is to pull on the creativity that is in your congregation.
Can I say, I'm not used to hearing that from a pastor, from preachers. I so appreciate what you're saying,
I have some amazing people that sit in my church, and I am validating them and allowing them to do them. Like I am giving them the platform. They have an opportunity. I'm blown away. I am blown away by one thing. I used to go to a conference with Tommy Barnett, and he said something to me that changed my life. He said, everything you need is in your house, even if it's in seed form. All you have to do is water it and watch that thing grow and get the full potential out of it. So I have been able to see full potential. I love my seat. I love my seat as a shepherd, that I don't have to come up with this stuff. I only speak vision while they make it happen.
Ooh, I love it. Bishop Walker, what about you? What new thing or what creative thing has been birthed during this time?
Man, I got to be totally honest with you. Social media was just off the plate. In my,
You're too old.
I mean, off the plate, but we are now social media savvy. We up on it, of course, Zoom and Facebook and everything. And it just kind of brought a new light to my people, to my church, to me. I mean, I'm just looking at church in a whole nother way. So, it was a challenge at first, but I think we are on top of it now, and I'm loving it.
That's good. That's good. Bishop Sapp, what's up with you?
Well, I took over a 100-year-old church.
Bless him, Lord.
The church will be 100 years old next month, believe it or not.
They collect more checks than they get online visits.
And that's funny.
Mike.
I succeeded a man who pastored 36 years. And so when I walked through the door, I walked into a very, very not traditional church, but a traditional church that was ready for change. Things were going extremely well. For me, it was. We was rolling. And I didn't take a mega church. I took a small member church, believe it or not. And this pandemic has done something for me. It's caused me to reimagine church in a whole different way. Having to come in and just reinstitute and cast new styles of vision to people who were accustomed to doing church a certain kind of way. It's been fun, to be perfectly honest with you. It's been fun. I've been able to do some things, and they're trusting me. And I think that was the key thing, because when you got deacons that the average age are 70 years old, but then you have to try to introduce them into how we're going to make sure that our, visual aspect of our ministry looks a certain type of way. So I went into a traditional church and put in a LED wall and lights and all that kind of stuff. And, they looking at me like, okay, Bishop.
The blood of Jesus.
The blood, all that kind of stuff. But they're enjoying it. They're enjoying it, and they're trusting it. And it's been fun, man, to reimagine, re-envision how we're going to do church now, because this is without question not the new norm. This is the norm. So we will just relax and just get used to how this is going to be. My head deacon told me something when we were talking about coming back into the sanctuary. He told me, he said, Bishop, I'm going to be very honest with you. He said, I done got used to sitting at home. Said, me and sister so-and-so, he said, I sit up with my coffee and my pajamas, and she has on her smock, and she get to shopping around the kitchen and then sit back down. And we figured out this thing about paying your tithes online. And, I'm probably never coming back to church. And I just told him, I said, well, Deke, I see you in the rapture. I just left it like that. And because that's the truth. There are certain members of your church that are older that will not come back out of fear, and they've gotten comfortable worshiping in this way. So, I just want to make sure that they are blessed. Those they never come back in the doors again. I want them to experience and feel what we feel in the sanctuary in their house.
I love it. I'm not going to keep you guys too much longer. I want to begin to have closing remarks from each of you, beginning with Dr. Jamal Bryant. You also took over a ministry there in Atlanta, Georgia. Georgia, one of the hubs or places of a civil rights movement. So I feel like you're right at home there. I know you're doing a lot of new things there. You even had potential presidential candidate Kanye West at your church, and you had a whole lot of things going. So what do you think? Well, I'm not going to ask what do you think. I'm just going to have you to have closing remarks, and what do you want to leave us with Dr. Jamal Bryant, and then Bishop Walker, Pastor John Hanna, and we'll close with Bishop Sapp as well. Dr. Bryant?
Yes, I'm going on to go do this rally for Sister Brianna. So thank you for letting me go first. Thanks to all of my comrades. I would say to every pastor and every leader, make sure your church proves that Black Lives Matter. That the church is not just the headquarters for the funeral, but it is the epicenter for life. And so one of the things that I had to learn in this COVID is to not just use the internet for worship, but also for service. And so as a consequence, we're doing after-school tutorial online, discipleship class online.
Love it.
We're doing a grieving support group online. We have lost, Pastor Tye, 34 people to COVID. And so this has been an unmatched season. But I think I want to say to young pastors, this is the season to try anything. Bishop Walker's former mayor, Ed Koch, used to say at every press conference, I'm going to try this, and if it don't work, I'm going to try something else. And I think that ought to be the mantle and the mantra for all of us in ministry. There is no pastor living who has ever pastored in a pandemic. So whatever it is that you try, it's worth the experiment, because nobody knows how to do it. All of us are amateurs. Thank you, Pastor, for letting me come. Please, whatever you do, make Pastor Hanna go last. I'll talk to you.
do that.
I'll do that. Thank you, Dr. Bryant. You be safe. Bishop Walker.
Man, that man is crazy. Listen, I want to say to every pastor that's listening, I need you guys to be encouraged. I heard Pastor Marvin Sapp say that he wasn't back at church yet, and neither am I. There's a lot of pastors. We talk a lot, and they're trying to figure out whether they're going to go back or not. But those who have not gone back have talked to me because they're concerned about their people. And one of the things that I'm finding out, even within my church, is that my people are just so appreciative that I have not gone back yet, not because they don't want to go to church, but it's because they're looking at the fact that I am concerned about their health. And of course, you know, down through the years, even when I was growing up, our forefathers, they preached to us because they wanted us to go to heaven. So there was times when, you know, I grew up in the church, I grew up in the era where they told us, if you were sick, still come to church. Let your sickness praise him. That's what they told me. You let your sickness praise him. I mean, I remember one time we had a deliverance service, and my pastor said, listen, there was a young lady in the hospital. He said, bring her hospital bed to church. And I mean, that's the kind of time that I grew up in. But our people now, they are so appreciative that we are now online and we're working, you know, social media to the point where they don't have to come, because a lot of them are nervous about coming. A lot of them, you know, like, you know, Pastor, we're going to come back, but just not yet, only because of what happened in New York and what they see was happening around the world. Again, you know, we lost five of our good members, man. Like, it still grieves me just to even think about them. 3 of them, we could not, as of yet, have a proper burial as of yet. You know, so it's been one thing after the other. But I want to encourage each and every pastor who has the mindset, you want your people to go to heaven, but you also want your people to live here on earth and to live their best life on earth. So I want to encourage you, you know, stay, you know, on the wall. But I want to, you know, to also say this, because Pastor Hanna said something at the very beginning of this that really struck me. Knowledge. We need the knowledge. And I think one of the things we have to do, I think this COVID has shifted the church to the place where we can't be fighting over the petty stuff that we've been fighting over and divided by the petty stuff. Pastors, we got to get together. We have to kill these walls, come together. You can learn from me. I can learn from you. What I have, you can get. and
Yeah.
what you can give me, you know. And I think that every joint supplies, the Bible says, every joint supply me and I supply you. So I want to encourage each and every pastor that's on and that's watching that we will come together in a more excellent way so we can combat the devices of the enemy.
Woo, I love it. Thank you so much for that, Bishop. And I've seen Pastor John Hanna recently partner up with another pastor, literally, and they had like double sermons and everything. I want to ask you about that. But Dr. Bryant made me promise that you go last.
Right.
So Bishop Sapp.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Bishop.
And my stuff is going to be real short. You know, we get the word. We get it every Sunday. I mean, as pastors, we have been striving and working hard to be creative, to, you know, try to do messaging that is not only, you know, revelatory, but even visual. And I think that we've done a great job as it pertains to that. I just want to tell everybody, vote.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, you know, we got to get out and we have to vote. We need to register. I believe that every pastor should have a voter registration drive at their church. John, what you said, Pastor Hannah, what you said earlier, I mean, it just blessed me. There's two things that you said that stuck with me since we got on here. And actually, I actually like put it on my phone. You know, one of the things you said is that, you know, everything that you need is in the house. And if you don't know where it is, it's a seed. That's powerful because, you know, my pastor, Bishop Marvin Sapp, used to teach it all the time. Whatever we need was in the house. And just to be reminded of that is an amazing thing. But the next thing that you said, and I want to make sure that I remember it properly. Next thing that you said is how, oh man, it just slipped my mind just that quick. But there are some things that we just need to make sure we get out. Oh yeah, vote. Your teacher made sure that you had your voter registration card before you can even get out of class. You know, what if we did that at our church? Okay, you joined the church, but a part of joining the church, let's get you registered to vote at the same time. I mean, they're just things that we need to be able to do that I believe that we should do in this season that will make impact. But one of the main things, I just want to make sure that everybody gets out and that we vote, because you can't affect change if you're not out there doing the things that it takes to bring change to pass.
Love it, love it. Last but certainly not least, Pastor Hannah, what do you have to say, sir?
Pastor Jamal is evil. He knows I have to do a prayer meeting in 15 minutes, but this is what I say. We all are in a weird season. It's only a season. This too shall end. If you can't do what you normally do, then the question is, then what should I do? Not giving up is not an option. Heaven is full of stuff. There are hidden treasures, full of ideas. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he'll show you what you need to do in this season. And it doesn't, you don't have to have the answer. You just have to have the right people. And what I realize is that I beg everybody, be stretched, and be okay with change. Be okay not having the answers. Be okay with being willing to get out this boat and walk on water. For all of us that are listening right now, we are all water walkers. Just get out the boat.
Hey, thank you so much, Pastor Hannah, Bishop Sapp, Bishop Walker, Dr. Bryant. Love you guys so much. This information was priceless. I do remember the children of Israel going into battle. I don't remember which one it was. But in order to win that battle, much like this one, they had to fight on both levels. Moses' hands had to be raised, and Joshua had to be fighting in the valley. The Joshua's got to fight practically, and then the Moseses have to fight spiritually. This battle will not be won just on the valley or just on the mountain. We have to have spiritual warfare and practical practices to win this battle. And like Pastor Hannah just said, don't just do what you can do. This is the season, ladies and gentlemen. So do what you should be doing. David came back after a fight, and all of his wives and everything was gone and everything was burned down. And he said, Lord, shall I pursue? He's a fighter. He knows what he can do. He knows what his gifting is, but he didn't move out of reflex and just do what he could do. He sought the Lord as to what he should do. And the Lord said, go, you shall recover all. I'm sure his confidence in that battle was on fleek because he knew he was going to win because he had the backing and the endorsement of heaven behind him. Don't just move and do what you can do. Do what you should do. Fight on both levels. We will see victory and we will see the kingdom of God in earth as it is in heaven. Thank you all so much for joining us on behalf of the American Urban Radio Inspirational Networks. We appreciate you for taking the time. And again, to all my constituents, God bless you. My condolences to the families of those who suffered loss during COVID in your ministries. And our prayers are with you. We love you very much. God bless you, Lord. God bless you, y'all. And
Keep doing what you're doing, Tye.
Yeah. I love y'all, man. Thank you.
Bless
All right,
you.
y'all.
Yeah.
Peace.